Welcome you all to this post-lunch session. uh, Let us welcome Dr. Sreejith K, Professor of Philosophy at Vidyasagar University in West Bengal. Uh, his specialization includes social epistemology, virtue ethics, applied ethics, and many other publications. He has, to his credit, which have been published in reputed professional journals. So over to you, Srijit.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Let me share the screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for those generous welcome. So I will talk about the virtue epistemological diagnosis of Gettier problem. So I'm given to understand that this morning you have discussed Gettier problem in some detail. So virtue epistemology is one of the recent developments in epistemology. It is, in many sense, it's a departure from the traditional way of doing epistemology. However, it also attempts to address some of the traditional problems, such as Gettier problem. One of the main advocates of virtue epistemology is Ernest Sosa. So I'll be drawing a lot from Sosa's account in this talk. So the plan of the talk is to provide some of the fundamentals of virtue epistemology. One second, let me. Okay, so some of the fundamental ideas of virtue epistemology, and then I will talk about the diagnosis that are given, diagnosis of Gettier problem that has been attempted, particularly by Ernest Sosa. Then we will talk about some of the criticisms of the diagnosis, and then I will also present some of the responses that I have in a very raw form. It is yet to be developed. So that's the plan. So like I said, virtue epistemology is a relatively new way of doing epistemology. It emphasizes on the intellectual virtues of the agent. So it's, in that sense, it's an agent-centric approach to understand knowledge. So it believes that in characterizing knowledge, it should be the intellectual virtues of the agent should be brought to the forefront. So there are mainly two versions, so to speak, of virtue epistemology. So one group believes that in characterizing knowledge, you need to pay attention particularly to certain kinds of intellectual virtues, such as perception, memory, introspection, inductive inference, etc. So all these are basically, this group is called as virtue reliabilism because they are paying attention to the reliability part. Whereas the other group mainly believes that you should, when thinking about intellectual virtues, you should be thinking about something analogous to moral virtues, such as open-mindedness, intellectual humility, conscientiousness, etc. So this branch is called as virtue responsibilism. Linda Saksevsky is one of the towering figure in that area. So despite these internal differences, virtue epistemology is of the view that in understanding knowledge or providing a characterization of knowledge, the intellectual virtue is the most important factor. And it's a departure from the traditional epistemology in the sense that it's not focusing on a conceptual analysis of knowledge, for example, which is the central project of traditional epistemology, so to speak. That is, it's not attempting to provide an account of knowledge in terms of individually necessary and jointly sufficient conditions. For example, Sosa says that uh, what he's trying to do is to provide a metaphysical account of knowledge. So you're characterizing knowledge and trying to what kind of a thing it is, rather than analyzing the concept. Um, so let me point out some of the features of Sosa's view. So in Ernest Sosa's view, both forming or sustaining a belief and doing an action are performances. So the larger category is performance. Both belief as well as action comes under the category called performances. So therefore, both belief and action have a shared normative features because they both falls under the category called performance. So performances have a goal. So if you talk about belief, truth is an important goal of belief. So you can the achieving the goal when it comes to belief is truth. So one of the significant aims of forming or sustaining belief is to get it right, to get the belief to be true, because we don't want to say that I believe it but it's false. When you believe it, you want it to be true. So belief seems to be a constitutive goal of belief. Truth seems to be a constitutive goal of belief. So a performance can be evaluated based on three criteria. The first criteria is that of accuracy. A performance is accurate when it attains its aim. And the second level of evaluation is that of adroitness. A performance can be evaluated by seeing whether it is an adroit one, whether it's a skillful one, whether it has been performed competently. The third level of evaluation of a performance is that of aptness. A performance is apt when the accuracy or the success of the performance is because of the adroitness of the performance. So accuracy, adroitness, and aptness. So this is the AAA structure of performance which Ernest Sosa provides us. A performance can be accurate and adroit without being apt. And that's what roughly the Gettier kind of cases are. And we will be discussing examples of such cases. So I hope roughly the idea is sort of clear to you, I suppose. All right. So this is about performance in general. And when it comes to belief, belief is accurate if it is true. You can say that a belief is accurate if it is true. And belief can be said as adroit if the agent exercises her or his competence or intellectual virtues in acquiring or sustaining it. So this competence, intellectual virtues, abilities, skills, etc. are used in an interchangeable way in the virtue epistemological literature. It might be the case that on a closer analysis, there could be subtle differences between these terms. However, the virtue epistemology literature usually use them in an interchangeable manner, and I'll be following the same as well. So apt belief is knowledge. So the question, what is knowledge? The short answer is knowledge is apt belief. That is a belief that is both accurate and adroit, and it's accurate because of its adroitness. So this because of clause that we talk about is it shouldn't be understood merely in causal terms. It's often characterized as the truth is because of competence, or the accuracy is because of the competence, when the accuracy or success manifests the competence. So there is a metaphysical analysis also involved there. So it's not presented merely in a causal term. If you present merely in causal term, Gettier cases can creep in very easily. Okay. So this is what I just mentioned. The accuracy or success of a performance is because of adroitness when the accuracy or success can be sufficiently explained by the adroitness of the performance. That is, a performance is apt, it's a successful performance, and the success, the best explanation of the success is the competence of the agent. So in such cases, the accuracy or success of the performance manifests the competence involved. Therefore, apt performance is a performance whose success manifests competence. In such cases, the success is sufficiently creditable to the agent. This is another important term, creditable. Creditability. So knowledge is a creditable success, or an apt performance is a creditable success. The success is sufficiently creditable to the agent. That's an apt performance. So knowledge is a case of apt performance. So knowledge is a case of apt performance in the realm of belief. The success or correctness or truth of the belief forming or sustaining process manifests the competence of the agent. In such cases, the success of the belief forming or sustaining process is sufficiently credited to the agent. So there are many terms, many jargons are throwing at you, I understand. But the basic idea is that knowledge is a apt belief, and it's a creditable success. So there are many crucial notions involved in virtue epistemology. One is that of performance. This is of central significance in the virtue epistemology. So the idea of performance has a teleological structure. It need not require an agency and need not be intentional. So the performance is characterized in a very, very broad sense. So such as this. The point of knife is to cut well. So that's the goal of knife, so to speak. It's very Aristotelian in certain sense. The point of the heart is to pump blood. The point of going to store is to buy something. The point of believing is to get it right, so on. So in some of the cases, you know that there is no intention involved. So heartbeat. It's successful if it helps to pump blood. And acts as well as sustained states can be considered as performances. So it can be a particular action or it can be a sustained state. For example, when you go to beach, very often you see a person standing just like a statue and asking for money, and they are painted in silver color all over the body, etc. So they're just standing there, but it's a sustained state. He might be here, he or she who is standing there might be thinking about something else and just standing there for a long time, but it's a sustained state nonetheless. So even that can be considered as a performance. So a long sustained, so similarly, so that's a sustained state in the case of performance. So similarly, there can be belief that are sustained for a very long time. So a long sustained belief can be considered as performance, though any continued conscious effort is not made by the agent to sustain the belief. So this is some preliminary remarks about performance. So the next idea is that of credit. So we know that one sense of praise or respect. So one sense of credit is to praise. So you credit somebody for something means you are giving certain amount of praise to that person, or you give certain amount of respect to that person for achieving something good. So that's one sense. However, Sosa construes the term without restricting it to this sense. So Sosa's usage is not restricted only to this sense of the term. It is used rather in a generic manner where the term is understood as a causal notion. So therefore, inanimate objects also can be credited with success. For example, a bridge or a ship can be credited for withstanding a storm. A thermostat can be credited for controlling the temperature, etc. So it's understood in a very mechanistic fashion. So the next idea is we have already mentioned competence. So competence is an ability to issue successful performance. But is it an ability to issue successful performance all the time? Perhaps not. So one way of understanding that is competence or intellectual virtues also for that matter, are issuing successful performances more often than not. So competence is also used in a very broad sense, and it includes inanimate objects. A bridge or ship can perform well to resist a storm since it has the relevant competence. So again, you can see how mechanistically it is used. So now, having laid out some of these notions of virtue epistemology, now I will come to the Gettier case. So I'm sure that throughout the morning you have heard a lot about Gettier case, and now you have a very good understanding as to what it is and what it is not. So I'm not sure whether I should read out this example. This is an example from uh, Gettier's original paper. So as you have already understood, Gettier case is a case which shows that justified true belief is not a sufficient condition for knowledge. So why was it important? Because for a very long time, for a surprisingly long period of time, knowledge as justified true belief or something akin to that was prevalent in the Western philosophy. The root of this account is perhaps available in Plato. I think Plato's dialogue Meno or Theaetetus, one of them, and it in one form or the other it remained in the literature until it got challenged by Edmund Gettier very recently, 1963, if I remember correctly. So this is one of the example from his paper, that is, Smith and Jones appeared for a job interview. Smith has strong reasons to believe that Jones is the man who will get the job. The president of the company told Smith that John is the man who will get the job. Smith had counted the coins in the pocket of Jones a few minutes ago, and he believes that Jones has 10 coins in his pocket. On the basis of these, Smith reasonably infers that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. So the preposition that he believes is the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. However, the information which Smith receives from the president of the company is false. It is Smith who will get the job and not Jones, as the president of the company told to Smith. Unknown to Smith, Smith himself has 10 coins in his pocket. So thus, Smith's belief that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket is true. So this is the case. So here, Smith has the belief that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket, and he had good reasons for believing it, because he saw that Jones have 10 coins, and all the evidences suggest that John will get the job. So from that, he's inferring the belief that the man who will get the job has 10 coins in his pocket. So that's the inference. So this inference, it also turns out to be true. It's also turned out to be true because um, Smith himself had 10 coins in his pocket and he's the one who is getting the job. So this is a case of a belief which is justified and true. So this is a justified true belief, but however, we feel something odd about it. We don't feel, our intuition doesn't suggest that it's a case of knowledge. We don't, we are not comfortable calling it as knowledge. So Gettier therefore suggests that, look, here is a case where you have justification, truth, and belief, all the three conditions satisfied, but it's not a case of knowledge. So here is a counterexample to the account of knowledge. So if you look at some of the features of Gettier cases, all the and as we know, after Gettier's original examples, there were a lot of attention towards resolving this problem. Some of them were uh, arguing that we need a fourth condition for resolving this issue, and also allow so many several examples like the original example of Gettier was also suggested. So all these examples were are usually referred as Gettier kind of cases or Gettier like cases, etc. And all these cases are having similar structure. All these examples have, for example, Linda Saksapsky point out that all these Gettier cases or Gettier kind of cases have a mutually cancelling bad luck or good luck structure. So if you look at the previous example, it's bad from an epistemic point of view that um, the evidence turns out to be true, it turns out to be false. That is, uh, Jones is not getting the job. The evidences are misleading or it's false. It's epistemically unlucky instance. However, in a very lucky fashion, it turns out that not only that Smith is getting the job, but he himself is having 10 coins in his pocket. So it's extremely lucky from an epistemic point of view that it has happened. So the first instance of unlucky scenario gets cancelled by the second lucky scenario. So Linda Saksapsky, for example, argued that all Gettier cases are having essentially these kind of a structure. This is the recipe, so to speak, for coming up with Gettier cases. So, okay, so having said these things about Gettier cases, now we will discuss one of the examples which Ernest Sosa discussed. This is a case in the realm of action, and he argues that this is the structure of this example is analogous to that of Gettier case. And as we said in the very outset, that virtue epistemology believes that there are um, structural similarities between action and belief, and it's not accidental because both of them, this is because both of them fall under the category called performances, and that's why they share the normative properties. And looking at action for finding out the normative properties of belief is often comes as very handy in the view of Sosa, because it's a much more familiar um, kind, and we engage in the evaluation of this all the time. So he's trying to provide a Gettier kind of case in the realm of action, and it goes as follows. An archer skillfully shoots at the target. The arrow travels towards the target to hit it. An unexpected gust of wind takes the arrow away from its path towards the target. After a while, another gust of wind takes the arrow back to its original path. The arrow hits the bullseye finally. So here what happens is that an archer shoots very skillfully, And then happens the first unlucky instance, that is of one wind takes the arrow away from the path. So now it would seem that it's very unlikely that the arrow will now hit the target. However, as a very lucky thing, another wind took the arrow back to its original path, and finally the arrow hits the target. So the effect of the first unlucky instance gets cancelled by the second. So that's what happens here. The first effect of the first instance gets cancelled by the second, and finally the archer ends up well. So Sosa would say that, look, this is not an apt performance. This is not an apt performance. Apt performance means you have an action, the performance is successful, and is successful because of the competence. Okay, so the performance is successful because of the competence. So here, Sosa would say that this success is not because of the success, the competence of the agent. This is rather because of the wind, perhaps. And here, the success, we wouldn't credit the success to the archer either. So, as he say, not the apt performances are cases where the success can be credited to the agent. So this is not such a case. So therefore, it is clear as to why this is um, an apt performance, and similar is the case of Gettier cases. Gettier cases are similar cases in the realm of action. So it becomes clear as to why they are not cases of knowledge, because knowledge is an apt performance and Gettier cases are not apt performances. So this is, in a nutshell, the kind of diagnosis which uh, Sosa suggests for Gettier cases. So now, what I'm interested in is looking at some of the criticisms of this account, and then present kind of response that I have in front of you. So the reason is that I have a feeling that just providing the terrain or the overall view of this will not probably help us to get a feel of what it is. And rather, if we look at some of the criticisms and then grapple with the nitty-gritties of that, maybe we'll get a feel of the project. So that's why I'm not interested in providing an overall view anymore. So this is what we will try to do in the rest of the talk. And meanwhile, any of you have any question, you can always interrupt, or if it's not very urgent, please keep it towards the end. Okay, so the philosopher called Christian Pillar suggests that what Gettier does, or what is happening in what is happening in Sosa's example is very clear in this case of Duncan Pritchard. Duncan Pritchard provides the following example. The example is that an archer shoots the arrow, and then the arrow moves towards the bullseye to hit it. In the middle of its flight, a dog catches the arrow. Then the dog runs towards the bullseye and hits the arrow on the bullseye. So the first unlucky instance happens, that is the intervention of the dog. Dog just catches the arrow. So now it would seem that it's very unlikely now that the arrow will hit the target. But to make the situation very lucky, the dog runs exactly towards the target and hit it there. I'm sure that by now you all know, those of you who are not previously familiar with Gettier cases know by now that the literature of epistemology is filled with, flooded with examples, and some of them are very unrealistic and bizarre. So bear with me for that. Okay, so this is the case. So uh, Pillar says that Pritchard's door captures the intuition of Sosa very well. So what happens here is, Pritchard wants to say, is kind of a loosening of the causal connection between the basic action and the event. So in the case of archery, the basic action is that of releasing the arrow, and the final event is that of the arrow hitting on the target. That's the final event. So Pritchard points out that what is happening is that the causal connection between these two, that is the the basic action, that of releasing the arrow, and the final event, that of the arrow hitting the target, the causal connection has been loosened. So that's what he does, according to Pillar. That's what Sosa does in coming up with Gettier kind of cases in the realm of action. So, however, Pillar wants to say that, but this has a consequence, rather, um, rather disastrous consequence. That is, if the causal connection is very loose, then you can say that the success is not sufficiently credited to the agent because it's causally not connected as much as it should for getting the credit. However, Pillar wants to point out that in such cases, you can hardly say that the action is that of the agent either. That is, just like Pritchard's case, in Pritchard's case, Pritchard's dog example, the action is not done by the agent anymore. It's the action of the dog. And the agent is not credited for the success, but it's not the action of the agent either. It's the action of the dog hitting the arrow on the target. So credit claim is at stake here. Credit claim is a claim that the success is creditable to the agent. So that's at stake. Also, the attribution claim is at stake. That is, the event occurs is attributable to the agent. The event is no more attributable to the agent either. So, if the agent is not sufficiently credited for success, then the event occurs cannot be considered as her or his action either. So credit and attribution always goes together. That's what Pillar wants to argue. So if that is the case, you cannot come up with Gettier cases in the realm of action. We will see more details for this argument in the following slides. So another example, so he is presenting similar such examples to drive the intuition home. So next is light and warden case. The light and warden case is that I want to turn on the light. I flick the switch. Bad luck. There is no wiring from the switch to the light. But good luck, flicking the switch makes a bell ring in the warden's flat, which is a signal for him to turn on the light in my room. Okay, so again, what he wants to say is that the first unlucky instance, that is, there is no wiring from the switch to the light. But that unlucky scenario gets cancelled out by the lucky scenario that of it's a signal for the warden, and warden will switch on the light. So here, Pillar want to say that here the agent is not sufficiently credited, but the action is not the success is not attributable to him either, because it's the action of the warden after all. So here also again he wants to show, look, attribution claim and credit claim goes together. So he gives another similar example where this warden get replaced by a heating device. So when you on the switch, there is no direct wiring, but in somewhere a heating device gets heated up and it push another switch, and therefore, and in that way the light gets on. So Pillar wants to suggest that different examples of with different levels of complexities can come up, with such examples. So he says, Sosa's examples attempt to drive a wedge between attributability and creditability. So he's trying to separate, Sosa trying to separate attribution and credit. Attributability requires the right causal connection. Undermining creditability via loosening the causal connection will thus always undermine attributability as well. So attributability and creditability will always go hand in hand. That's what he wants to say. So then he points out that there is an asymmetry between belief and action. That is, belief can be successful or unsuccessful. That is, belief can be true or false. But actions cannot be unsuccessful. That's what he wants to argue. Actions cannot be unsuccessful. Actions are identified by their success conditions. This is what he says. Whereas belief can be true or false, actions cannot be unsuccessful because we pick them out by their success condition. A sufficient causal connection between the agent and the event, which is necessary for the attributability, binds the success to the agent. Once this is established and something is an agent's action, it is impossible to Gettierize. We conclude that actions cannot be Gettierized. So what he says is that, if it's not clear, this. A belief is successful if it is true. A belief is unsuccessful if it is false. It's very clear. However, Pillar holds there is nothing called an unsuccessful action. So corresponding to what is called an unsuccessful belief, that is false belief, there is nothing corresponding to that in the realm of action. There's nothing called unsuccessful action. The reason why he says is that Pillar's points can be understood with the help of the following case. Suppose I prepared a cup of tea. I prepared tea only if my actions brought about tea. Suppose instead of putting tea powder, by mistake I put some coffee powder. Then all I can say is that I tried to prepare tea, but I failed. So in the scenario, I tried to prepare tea, but did not prepare tea. One cannot say that I prepared tea, but failed. So in the case of belief, one can say that I believe X, but it fails. If X turns out to be false, you can say X, but it fails. But here, it's not possible. That is the argument. So Pillar suggests that, so this loosening the causal connection is what Sosa does, and that is not a successful project, because if you are loosening the causal connection between basic action and the final event, whenever credit claim is at stake, attribution claim is also will be at stake. Therefore, you will never be able to come up with Gettier cases in the realm of action following that strategy. So, Pillar wants to argue that what's happening here is something else. According to Pillar, it's not the strength of the causal connection that determines credit. He argues that what determines the credit is the knowledge of the environment. The knowledge of the environment determines credit according to Pillar. For example, let's think about the original example of Sosa, the archer. So in the original example, just to refresh your memories, the archer released the arrow, and after some time, a gust of wind takes the arrow towards left, and after a while, again, it's another gust of wind takes the arrow back to its original path, and finally the arrow hits the target. So now suppose Pillar says that while doing this, the archer knew what exactly would happen. Before releasing the arrow, the archer knows that a wind will be there with such and such a force, with such and such direction, in mutually cancelling way, etc. And this archer has the ability to predict them and adjust his shots accordingly, etc. If that is the case, we wouldn't say that the archer is not credited for success. We would rather say that the archer is credited for his success. Why? Pillar says because the archer has sufficient knowledge of the environment and therefore he knows exactly what he's doing. Therefore, he would be credited for his success. That's what Pillar says. So it's not the causal connection. So this example shows that sufficient causal connection is not necessary for creditability. That's what this example shows according to Pillar. So now Pillar also gives another example to show that sufficient causal connection is not a strong causal connection is not sufficient either for creditability. It's not necessary. It shows the previous example. And this example shows that a sufficient causal connection is not, a strong causal connection is not sufficient for creditability either. So here is the example. So with my remote control, I, the agent, can only go forward one channel at a time. At the moment, I'm on the first channel, that is BBC One. I, that is the agent, want to watch football and I reasonably expect it will show on ITV, the third channel. I want to press the remote one time and then another time. I press the remote once. Surprise, football is shown on BBC Two. The second channel. I end up well. I can watch football, but virtue epistemology would say I do not end up ideal. So again, here you can see that there is a unlucky scenario and then lucky scenario. So Pillar argues that here there is a very strong causal connection, right? The agent does, and there is a strong connection between what he does and what's the result, the final outcome. So Pillar holds thus the lack of knowledge explains the lack of credit. It's not the lack of causal connection. Sir, how much time do I have? 10 minutes or?
We continue this till 4 o'clock,
Okay,
but then we can keep say 10 minutes for question answer.
sure, sir. Thank you, sir. So Pillar argues that this lack of knowledge is explained by the lack of credit. That is the lack of knowledge of the environment. That's what explains the lack of credit. So Pillar holds that this view of creditability runs against Sosa's idea that creditability diminishes with loosening of causal connection. As long as we know what's going on and we have some influence, adroitness ensures full creditability. So according to Pillar, this line of analysis is not acceptable to virtue epistemology since this will amount to circularity. That is, virtue epistemology wants to argue that knowledge can be characterized based on good action, but here it turns out that characterizing good knowledge itself requires knowledge. Therefore, it will result in certain kind of circularity. Okay, so now I will try to say some, I'll try to respond to some of these criticisms, but it's not a full-fledged response. So, so regarding the modified Archer case, the modified Archer case is the case where the archer has this additional competence and additional knowledge about background knowledge. And so, as we saw, Pillar says that it's the knowledge of that environment. If the archer knows enough about the environment, then the archer can be credited, though the causal connection is not sufficiently there. So one way of responding to that would be to say that uh, in this modified case, the archer has some additional competence which the archer in the previous case didn't have. So in this case, the archer is sufficiently credited for his or her additional competence, and not necessarily because of the background knowledge. Because one can say even in the first case, the archer is having certain amount of background knowledge, such as this is the light condition, such is the environment, etc. So, so by invoking, by recognizing the fact that in this example, the agent has additional competence, one might be able to respond to the criticism. Again, it's not without fault, there are certain issues, but that's an initial line of thought that I have. The second is about the television and the knowledge of the environment case. So here, as we saw, a strong causal connection is present, and the agent did not know that she is tuning into the channel where football is shown. And this lack of knowledge, according to Pillar, explains why we would praise the agent to a lesser degree for her success. So here the tuning in is adroit. It was tuned in the right way, and it's also accurate. It took the agent to the channel to which she was tuning in, the second channel, and it was accurate because of adroitness. So that's an apt, it's an apt tuning in, so to speak. So that's the argument of Pillar. So according to Pillar, the lack of credit is explained by the lack of knowledge. However, we want to say that it's out of luck the agent ended up at the channel where football is shown. It's lucky, and it's cannot be credited. Success is not sufficiently credited because uh, the agent didn't know what he or she was doing. That he or she didn't know that he is tuning into the channel which shows football. So this lack of knowledge explains, according to Pillar, the lesser credit that we confer upon the agent. So I believe that there are difficulties with this argument of Pillar. So one is that the agent tunes into the second channel from the first channel, right? And the aim of this tuning in is to reach the second channel. The accuracy of this tuning in is decided by whether the agent reaches the second channel or not. That's the criteria based on which we will decide whether the tuning in is accurate or not. So though the agent in the example has the goal of eventually reach the channel which shows football, that's not the goal that she has in this particular tuning in. So of course she has the goal to reach at the channel which shows football eventually, but that was not the goal of the tuning or of the current tuning in. Therefore, the success condition of this tuning in should not be construed in that way. So in this particular tuning in, reaching the channel which shows football does not determine the accuracy of the tuning in. The agent's success is not due to the fact that she reached the channel which shows football, but she succeeded due to the fact that she reached the second channel. So what determined the success is whether she reached second channel or not. Though the second channel and the channel which shows football is the same channel here, what should be used in deciding the success condition should be whether she or he reads the second channel or not. So pillar here conflates the criteria for determining the accuracy here. So similarly, when it comes to the case of the wiring case, the light and the heating device case. So the case was somebody puts the switch, I put the switch on here, and then the signal goes elsewhere and the heating device get heated up, and that heating device puts on another switch, and then the light in my room gets on. So Pillar's argument was that here again the agent is not sufficiently credited, and it's not sufficiently credited because he didn't know enough about the background, about the environment in which she or he is operating. That's what he's saying. But I think that's perhaps not fair, because of course the agent didn't know the details of this chain that leads to the lighting of the bulb. But that is so in the case of the normal case also. When we switch on the light, we know very little about the details of the wiring. A lot more is happening there. A lot of flow of electricity means quite a lot, flow of electrons, etc., etc. A lot of us doesn't know the nitty-gritties of that. So in that sense, we don't know a lot about the environment. But however, we are credited for the success. So if that is true, similar should be the case in the light and the heating device example also. So I think again there is a problem with the example. And so now, so therefore, the crux of Pillar's argument is that success, credit for success and attribution of success cannot come apart. That's the crux of his argument, as we saw. So unless the credit for success and the attribution of success can come apart, one cannot come up with a Gettier case in the realm of action. So this is happening according to Pillar because belief and action are very dissimilar. So therefore, Sosa's project is doomed to failure. That's the argument. But I argue that one can come up with examples where success, credit for success and attribution of success can come apart. So here is one. A ball, after hitting on the side of the bat of a batsman, the batter, travels towards the second slip. The fielder on the second slip dives to catch the ball. Unexpectedly, the wicketkeeper also dives towards the ball. The ball hit on the wicketkeeper and ball hit on the tip of the glove of the wicketkeeper and moves away from both the wicketkeeper and the second slip fielder. The ball hits on the helmet of a close fielder and it bounces back to the second slip fielder who was diving. The second slip fielder just folded the fingers by realizing that the ball fell right into his hand. The second slip fielder caught the ball. So here, so though it sounds like a long story, it's all this happens in a fraction of a second. So the action is accurate here because the second slip fielder caught the ball while diving. So I construe the diving catch as a hyphenated expression. Okay, so the action is accurate because the second slip fielder caught the ball while diving. And it's adroit because of two reasons. One is that the fielder dived in such a fashion where if the direction of the ball was not interfered, the fielder would catch the ball. And Secondly, when the ball fell into the hand of the fielder who was diving, he folded his fingers in the right manner to catch the ball. So the success of the action, that is taking a diving catch, is not sufficiently credited to the second slip fielder. That is, though the diving catch is adroit and accurate, the accuracy of the diving catch is not sufficiently explainable in terms of the adroitness manifested in the diving catch. Therefore, it's a Gettier case. So in the realm of action, one can say. So this is not sufficiently creditable success. But there is no doubt about the attribution. It's clearly a diving catch taken by the second slip fielder. There is no doubt about that. So the credit for success and attribution of success therefore comes apart. So thus one can argue that there are Gettier cases in the realm of action where attribution of success and credit for success comes apart. So here there is no weakening of the causal connection involved. In the other cases which Sosa provided, there was an allegation of weakening of causal connection because there is a distinction between basic action and final event. So here, that kind of a scenario is not there. So that would suggest that weakening of the causal connection is not necessary for Sosa's view to provide a Gettier kind of case in the realm of action. So this can suggest that perhaps Piller inadequately construes Sosa's diagnosis of the Gettier problem. So the point is that without giving a distinction between basic action and event, one can come up with such cases. So what we have looked at is that virtue epistemology's basics, ideas we have looked at. And also we have looked at how virtue epistemology, particularly in Sosa's version, provides a diagnosis of the Gettier problem. Then we saw some of the criticisms of such a view. And then we saw some of the possible responses one can make towards those criticisms. So I think I have finished the talk well before the time. So if you have any questions, maybe we can discuss. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. This virtue epistemology is one of the recent attempts to address some of the issues arising out of this Gettier problem. And, you have very nicely, in the main points, main claims of virtue epistemology, as well as Hiller's criticisms of this virtue epistemology. So thank you very much. So now, the lecture is open to discussion, questions, and comments. So please come forward.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Sir, my question is the tea example you have shared with us. I didn't get it properly because if I fail to make the tea properly instead of make coffee, then why cannot I say that in the realm of action that actually I have failed to make the tea, make a cup of tea? Instead, we can say that we have successfully made a cup of coffee. So that I didn't get properly.
Okay, the example, let's go back. Okay, so anyway, the point of the example was virtue epistemology assumes that there is a structural analogy between belief and action, right? So belief and action are similar. So a belief is successful if it is true, and it is unsuccessful if it is false. So what Piller points out that exactly similar scenario we don't get it in the realm of action. So the tea example that he provided was that suppose you are trying to make a tea, and then instead of giving tea powder, you gave coffee powder, then you fail to make tea, right? So here what he's saying is that in the case of belief, you can say, I believed X, but it failed. Right? I believed that it is raining now, but then I looked at and actually it's not raining, then my belief failed. But in the case of tea example, you cannot say that I made tea, but it failed. You cannot say that. All you can say is that I tried to make tea. That's all you can say. You didn't make tea. You tried to make tea, right? So in belief case, that's not what you're saying. I tried to believe, but it failed. But believe X, but it failed. That's not what you're saying. I believed X, but it failed. So similarly, you cannot say that I made tea, but it failed. No, you didn't make. You didn't make. You only tried. Only attempted. So therefore, it shows that there is a um, lack of parity. That's what he's saying. Did you understand that now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's clear to me. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, any other questions or comments?
Thank you, sir. Actually, I have the same question about this unsuccessful action. How can it be happen? So it is quite clear that we attempt to do something and it can be successful or unsuccessful. But my question is, if I can't make the tea, then it is unsuccessful. So why we can't say that action can be unsuccessful?
What?
When I'm making a coffee, it's something different.
Yeah. So what is unsuccessful? Unsuccessful is your attempt, right? You have attempted, and your attempt to make coffee or attempt to make tea failed. So what has been failed is your attempt.
Okay, that's fine
Yeah.
now. So
That's what
basically, the attempt is failed, not the action.
that's what Pillar would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, any other questions or comments or clarifications?
I hope it didn't go above everybody's head.
No, I don't think so, because this is a very interesting, attempt to address a Gettier kind of problem. This belief action analogy is actually very interesting, and it also throws off a lot of interesting issues.
Sir, I need another clarification. In the Archer example by the first Archer example, probably by Sosa. So here, when the archer actually with both first bad luck happens, then good luck is happening, and after that he ultimately hits the bullseye. So here is Sosa giving the credit to the archer or to the accident it happened?
No, here Sosa would say that. See, basically, what Sosa wants to say that this is a Gettier kind of case. See, what happens in Gettier case? In Gettier case, we don't credit the agent for getting the belief true, right? And because
Yes.
of that lack of credit, we say that it's not a case of knowledge.
Yes.
So in a similar way, Sosa wants to say that this is an analogous case of Gettier. It's an analogous case of the Gettier scenario in the realm of action. So he would say this is a Gettier case in the realm of action. Here, two mutually cancelling good luck, bad luck scenario emerges, and finally, the agent ends up well, but it's not ideal. It's not enough to credit him or her for the success. So he would say that given the kind of situations through which the performance has gone through, it's difficult to say that the agent should be credited. See, we can you think about, suppose we are watching an archery competition and this is happening. Okay, the archer released the arrow, then one gust of wind takes the arrow away, and suppose you are a fan of that particular archer, you would say, oh my goodness, you will be concerned, you'll be worried, and then another gust of wind takes it back its original, and that finally it hit the arrow. You will say that, oh my goodness, somehow he won, somehow he got it right. That's what you would say. You will have a sigh of relief, right? So you wouldn't praise him in this case uh, for the success fully. You will rather be very happy that such a lucky scenario emerged.
Yes.
Um, so you would definitely say that, of course, he succeeded, but luck was in his favor.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, so he would say, by keeping those intuitions in mind, Sosa would say that this is not a case of success um, where you would sufficiently credit the agent.
Oh, okay.
By the
Thank
way,
you.
yeah, thanks. By the way,
Thank you very much.
all the participants, feel free to ask questions, because this virtue epistemology, as it is an emerging field, there is a lot of conceptual, mess, so to speak, and there are a lot of lack of clarity. So if you did not understand it fully, it's not necessarily your fault. Uh, there are a lot of issues, and many get frustrated with that as well. So there is a lot of work to be done, and lack of clarity is quite natural.
Well, one thing, Srijit, I was wondering, why bring in this belief action, analog? I mean, what is the justification behind, bringing this analog? I
The-
mean, belief in some sense is typically a mental state, right? And action does not, uh, exhaust itself in being a mental state. It is something more. So, what I mean, what is the reason behind bringing in this analog?
yeah, the explicit arguments as such are not much available, but what is common to all virtue epistemologists is that they take it, most of them, as far as I know, take it as a truism that both belief and action share their normative properties. Okay, so for example, Sosa, so they are of the conviction that both our belief and action are uh, what is called as performances. So, but like you said, if belief is to be construed as a mental state, then there could be a problem. So, so I wonder whether they will take recourse to the strategy of construing belief not necessarily as a mental state. Um, for example, belief pertaining to machines, or belief pertaining to, in the realm of artificial intelligence. Uh, I think want to uh, what they want to do seems very much like an externalist project. It's so externalism is very much part of the project. So it's not clear to me your answer to your question, but one thing that is clear to me is that they are sympathetic to an externalist approach rather than an internalist approach. So so
You see, when we talk about belief,
yeah.
we talk about truth, because that is why we want to talk about belief, because we want to target, so to say, truth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But when we talk about action, we can talk about successful action or unsuccessful action, or
Mhm.
even intentional action or non-intended action. We normally don't talk about truth in case of action. So I was, just
Okay.
wondering, what made people,
True,
uh,
true.
uh, 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 you know, uh, talking about belief action analog.
Oh yeah, I got what you have said. Okay, so I think here, yeah, you're absolutely right. When we talk about belief, we talk also about truth, and then one of the criteria for evaluating belief is whether your belief is true or false, right? So, Sosa would say that this, if your belief is true, another way of putting it is that your belief is successful. And if your belief is false, another way of putting it is that your belief is unsuccessful. So then you get a parallel at the realm of action. Action always has a goal of hitting something, etc. So action is successful if it fulfills that goal, and it is unsuccessful if it doesn't. So uh, truth is the constitutive goal of belief, whereas so if belief attains truth, you should say that we should say that is a successful belief. So the same terminology, therefore, similarly applicable to belief and action. That's the uh, take they would have. So
Yeah, I understand. But
um,
normally, we think of belief as propositional in nature, right? Do we think of action in that terms? I don't know.
no. So so I suppose belief maybe maybe one will have to characterize belief as kind of a mental action in that case. So belief as a mental. So here belief actually, yeah, I think there is a problem. Yeah. So you're right. Belief is often considered as proposition. So probably saying belief uh, has a problem. Maybe we should say believing. So one is talking about, not necessarily, one is not talking about belief, but one is maybe talking about believing. So by belief, what they mean is actually believing, the process of belief formation or belief sustaining.
Mm.
So, so if you put it in that way, it's not proposition anymore. What it is kind of an action.
Mhm.
So they are evaluating the process of belief formation or belief sustaining. So what we are evaluating is the process.
Mm. Yeah,
I think that's the um, response probably.
right.
Yeah, I think yeah, saying putting it in belief is misleading. You're right. When you say belief, it should be prepositional. So maybe one should say believing.
Mm. Yeah. Anyway, we have around uh, uh, 10 more minutes or so. So please ask for any clarification or question to our no learned speaker.
Yeah, it'll be very helpful because I'm also still thinking about these issues, and your questions might be very helpful for me. No, not that I necessarily will have the answer, but it will help me to think forward further.
Yeah,
Sir, I want to say something about
please go
Nirmala
ahead.
sir's
Yes.
observation. And I have studied now Russell, an outline of philosophy, and there is a chapter, language. And we know that the children reacts environment. So when infant learns, she or he doesn't know the language, but after repeating the action, he believes or disbelieves something, that whether it is something very good for me or not, like barking's dog, he may be afraid of that. So by repeating the performance or action, he or she is going to believe something. So belief is, I think that it is my personal observation, belief is very much related to action, though it is mental state and action is something different. So in this way, language and learning, even psychology, so these are very much complicated issues. And when we are talking about sense data, then we react something by some 4 stages type of mental state, mental phenomena or processes. So I think belief is related with action. Whether I'm
True, true.
able to or not to make you understand, I don't know actually.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that belief is
Related with action.
related with
Indirectly.
action in many way. To successfully act in many situations, we need to have a lot of beliefs related to that, and it's
Yes, sir.
important to get a lot of those beliefs true in order to act in a particular way. And as far as regarding learning, you say that we learn a lot of things, meaning we form a lot of beliefs in the light of actions, etc. Right? So
Yes, sir.
I think all of them are true. That is, action and belief are intimately intertwined, if I may say so. But the point which Nirmalya sir was raising was regarding the analogy of having the same normative properties and having the same structure, whether the belief and the action can have the same structure. For example, he points out that belief is often construed in a propositional way, but action is seems something different. So there seems to be a difficulty in saying that belief is similar to action as far as the structure is concerned. So if the structure is not similar or the same, Sosa's project will have a problem, because their fundamental assumption of his virtue epistemology is that both action and belief are having the same structure and therefore the same normative property. So by evaluating instances of action, we can even come up with solutions in epistemology. That's the radical claim. So,
Okay, sir.
so his concern was regarding the structure, and my sort of observation or kind of response was that perhaps by they shouldn't say belief, rather they should say believing, the process of belief formation or belief sustaining. And what one is evaluating in virtue epistemology is the process of belief formation or belief sustaining. So if you construe in that way, then the analogy, perhaps we don't have a problem as far as the similarities are concerned. So I think, but you're right that belief and action are very, very similar in many other ways.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, then let's end this session with sincere thanks to Dr. Sreejith for presenting his reconstruction of virtue epistemology and the problems it faces. Thank you very much, Sreejith.
Thank you, sir.
Now, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and also thanks to all the participants for a very active participation. I understand that it's as it is a new area. Many of them are not familiar, and there is a lot of conceptual muddle in the field. And also, it's afternoon session after lunch. It's hard to attend talks. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sreejith.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.